protein seems to be everywhere. Everyone seems to be obsessed with it. It's not something when I was growing up that protein was only really something bodybuilders and gym guys were into, and now it's everywhere. It's cereal, it's yogurt, everything seems to be fortified with protein. And I think there is an association that you can't get protein from plants. And like I say, Anna's going to prove that that's not actually the case.
Hi everyone, and welcome again to ProVeg Talks Health and Nutrition series. I'm very excited to be your host on this journey through the world of plant-based nutrition, food innovation, and all the exciting things happening in the food system. My name is Valentina Gallani. I'm a nutritionist and food technologist, and I work as a health and nutrition manager at ProVeg International. If you're new here, in each episode of this podcast, we will cover different topics with guests that come from different backgrounds to better understand the relationship between nutrition, health, and sustainability with a plant-based perspective. So whether you're a long-time plant-based eater or you're just plant curious, you're in the right place. And if you haven't seen our previous episodes, I highly recommend checking up on them. Okay, so joining me today, we have Anne Wanders and Will Greenwood. Welcome to ProVeg Talks. How are you today?
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you, Valentina.
Hi, again, nice to be here. I'm a bit tired. I've just had a newborn son, so if I'm a bit slow and you'll notice in the background, it's no longer my office. It's a bit more of a baby room, but excited to be here.
That's nice. Flexibility work, right?
Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, I'm very excited for this episode. We will talk about different topics, but maybe just for our listener, can you please introduce yourself, your work? What do you do in your work life?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Anne Wanders. I am a nutrition scientist and I have a PhD from Wageningen University. Mm-hmm. I work already for 10 years as a nutrition and health scientist at Unilever. And right now I'm leading the research program that aims to really progress the understanding of the nutritional value and the health benefits of plant-based diets and plant-based foods. And I'm closely working with Will's team as well to ensure that our insights are used in the products and the whole portfolio.
Thanks, Anna. My name's Will Greenwood. I'm what's called a technical project leader at the Vegetarian Butcher. So my role essentially is to take science and concepts from the lab and from the from academia all the way down to a product we see in the shelf. And primarily my role is to make sure that these products are delicious as possible. But also hopefully making, good business sense as well. So that's my role.
Yeah, that's nice. Great. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, as you might understood in this episode, we're going to deep dive in the relatively recent world of plant-based meat alternatives. There has been a lot of discussion around these new products, and we are all very curious to learn more about two experts like you. So I'm very, very excited. Maybe as a starting question, what does it mean exactly, plant-based meat alternatives?
So very simply, plant-based meat alternatives are products that replicate the exact taste, texture, and function of traditional animal-based meat products like sausages or burgers. The key difference is, sounds very obvious, but the raw materials, the ingredients that we use for those are entirely from plant source. So they're grown, from plants. And actually, in some cases, you might see mushrooms or fungi as well. Some biologists might get a bit technical and say, oh, well, they're not plants, but actually they would still fall into the plant-based category. I think one thing that they are not is things you might hear about in the news. So it's not lab-grown meat. That's a completely different product type, and it's not things like insect burgers, which you may also hear about, that gets confused in this space. So yeah, very simply, it's traditional meat-based products that are entirely derived from plant-based ingredients.
Okay, thank you. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for explaining, because sometimes there's a bit of confusion. Just to be clear, legumes, pulses, tofu, tempeh, and seitan are great alternatives for meat, but these foods have been present for a lot of years already in our diet. So we can say that these plant-based meat alternatives are kind of new generation products. Yeah, you both exactly, yeah, and you both work in the food industry. So my question is, what is your perception toward consumer acceptance of these products? If you have any insight on the concerns, for example.
Yes, I can jump in on that one. And I think, as I alluded to earlier about my job, one of the biggest concerns for consumers entering this new space, and it is, you know, relatively speaking, a very new space, and the big concerns are taste. Because at the end of the day, that's the key reason we buy most foods. It's because it tastes good. And unfortunately, the category has suffered from some terrible products that have been launched in the past. And part of my role is I have to do a lot of tastings of, I must have tasted thousands of different products, new things that are coming through. And some, I have to say, are absolutely disgusting. You wouldn't feed them to your dog. They're really bad. And unfortunately, these are the ones that have these are the ones that can leave a kind of lasting negative impression on the category. So taste is absolutely critical when it comes to this, and that's a big, a genuine concern of consumers. And I think the other concerns that these your plant-based products aren't providing enough nutrients, and it's more of a reputational association, as we'll see from what Anna's going to get into, but particularly protein is something that there is a big concern, because they're from plants, they're not going to provide enough protein. And I think you'll see in the food industry at the moment, protein seems to be everywhere. Everyone seems to be obsessed with it. You know, it's not something when I was growing up that protein was only really something bodybuilders and gym guys were into, and now it's everywhere. It's cereal, it's yogurt, everything seems to be fortified with protein. And I think there is an association that you can't get protein from plants. And like I say, Anna's going to prove that that's not actually the case. And then I think some of the final ones, like particularly we've seen since a cost of living crisis in Europe post 2022, since Russia invaded Ukraine, and all the knock-on impacts of that, cost, like everything else, is massively important. And yeah, I think that's just something we always have to keep in the back of our minds, that people, you know, are stretched at the moment with their budgets, and they can't just eat ethically. They have to consider their budget as well. So that's another key factor. Yeah, so they're the three key concerns are the taste, the nutrition, and the cost of the products. Yeah. So yeah, I think like I say, the protein, particularly from the nutrition side of things, is really interesting, and it's particularly exciting. What like handing over to Anna, the work that she's been doing really shows that people don't need to have these concerns.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed, I wanted to connect with that topic as well, because about the amount of protein in plant-based diets. I think quite a recent study from a researcher at Wageningen University showed really the opposite. So she did an analysis of 25 European countries, and she looked at people with a plant-based dietary pattern, and she basically found that people on a plant-based diet, they all have sufficient protein in their diets. So that's maybe comforting to know, like protein content usually is not an issue. And then you still have people who are worried about the protein quality of plant-based foods and plant-based diets. And yes, it's true, plant-based foods can have a lower protein quality than animal foods. And there are a few protein sources that have an equally good protein quality, but I want to talk about that much more later. But yeah, I think there is an issue with protein quantity, but also questions about protein quality.
Yeah, thanks for the insights. I think you touched every point that I also had in mind. And yeah, talking about protein, just for our listener, we published already an episode in which we talk about protein quantity, protein quality of plant-based diets, and so on. So if you're interested, you can check it out, especially applied to sport nutrition. So really interesting. But Anne, you said something important, I would say, about protein quality and so on. And I know that you recently published a study on this. So can you tell us a bit more about the research and the key findings? And yeah.
Yeah, so we recently published a study. It was published in the journal called Current Developments in Nutrition. And in that study, we looked for the first time at how replacing animal meat with plant-based meat impacts the protein quality of a total diet. So yeah, in very brief, the conclusion was that when you replace animal meat with plant-based meat, the number of people with sufficient protein intake decreased slightly. So from 93% on animal meat diets to 86% on a plant-based meat diet. And yeah, that reduction may sound like quite significant. So it is a drop. However, actually, it's really small. So if you, for example, know the number of people who eat sufficient fiber in the Netherlands, that number would be lower than 10%. So if protein intake is 86%, I think, yeah, we should not be too worried.
Yeah, I think in general, like especially in the Western country, we definitely don't need worry about protein intake. Very interesting. And maybe can you tell us a bit more about the methodology, just to understand like this swapping, how you did it, how you calculated?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so yeah, it's good to mention that it was a more theoretical study. So we used the existing data. So we used data from the Dutch Food Consumption Survey, and that's a representative sample of Dutch adults who of who the dietary intakes were measured. And in these data, we first looked at the total intakes of protein in a diet, but also the next step was to look at the intake of protein while taking into account protein quality. That's called utilizable protein. So that's the protein that you can actually use by your body. And with these data, we looked at the protein adequacy of the diet. And the protein adequacy, that is a score for the total population. So how well does a population adhere to the dietary recommendations? So that's the 93% that I mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah.
And based on, with that as a starting point, we looked at different scenarios. So in the first scenario, we replaced the animal meat in the diet by plant-based meat. And for that one, we used average plant-based meat. So plant-based meat that is currently available in supermarkets. And then we looked at how that swap affected protein adequacy. And after that, we applied more scenarios. So we looked, for example, also into the protein content of the plant-based meat, but also the protein digestibility of the plant-based meat. And we looked at different sources of protein. So we looked at soy, pea, mycoprotein, and wheat as a source of plant-based meat. So yeah, I hope, that's clear. It's quite complex, but that's the starting point, the basis of the whole study. And I will try to keep it as simple as possible from now on.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think it's important because the methodology tells exactly what has been done. And sometimes we focus too much on the conclusion of a study while we don't know exactly what happened in the background. So thank you for sharing this.
Yeah.
And talking about the drop that you saw in the study, so from 93 to 86%, we understood is not such a big deal at the end of the day. But can you explain us how come this drop?
Yeah, I think that was also a key question we asked ourselves. So it's the thing, knowing what will happen when you make the swap is one thing, but we also want to understand what happens behind the scenes. Yeah, the drop from 93 to 86%, after some further studying, we found that it was primarily caused by the total protein content of the plant-based meat. So on the protein content of animal meat is 19 grams per 100 gram. And the protein content of plant-based meat in the study was 15 grams per 100 grams. So it's a difference of 4 grams per 100 gram.
Yeah.
And in a separate scenario, we increased the protein content of plant-based meat to be the same as animal meat. And in that scenario, the protein adequacy was 90%, so 90. So that's if with a similar amount of protein in plant-based meat as in animal meat, the protein adequacy would drop with 3%. So that's there it gets smaller. So we would say the total protein content of a food probably is that impact is larger than the impact of the protein quality, the protein source. So so also for people, so to make it very practical, if you are worried about your protein intake being a vegan or a vegetarian, then it's always smart to choose the products with a slightly higher protein content, because basically the conclusion is the protein content is more important than the protein source.
Okay, that's a very, very good point, actually. In fact, my next question was like, if there were differences between the different plant meat sources.
Yeah, so we've looked into that as well, indeed. So we looked into differences between soy, pea, wheat, and mycoprotein. And what I found really fascinating there is that, if you're a bit familiar with protein quality, the PDCAS or the DIAS scores for certain plant-based sources are much lower than that of others. So soy has a PDCAS score of 94, 95, whereas wheat has a PDCAS score of 35, for example. And
maybe Anna, sorry to interrupt. Maybe you could just explain a little bit about the PDCAS score, because not everyone's a nutrition scientist like yourself.
No, indeed. So Valentina mentioned that there is a whole podcast dedicated to that. So I tried to be very brief, but this is maybe too brief.
Feel free to explain it.
So
good.
Protein quality basically consists of two elements. So the first part is the amino acid composition. So there are 9 essential amino acids that all need to be present in a certain amount. And the second element is protein digestibility. So how well is the amino absorbed in your small intestine, so you can really use them. And that combination together gives a score, and you can assign the score to every food product that you eat. And generally, soy has quite a high score for a plant-based product. Often, so when ranging from 0 to 100%, soy usually is around 90, 95%. And a pea is, depends which source you take, but 70, 75. And wheat is can be much lower, 35. And then often it is thought that if you eat a food with a low protein quality, it's not, you cannot use it. But as humans, we eat diets, we eat blends of food. One product can help the other to together they can provide a good balanced amino acid profile. Using the different scenarios for the 4 different protein sources, we found that pea, soy, and mycoprotein each had resulted in a similarly high protein adequacy. So the only plant source that resulted in a lower protein adequacy was wheat. And that's also, that's not a surprise basically, because wheat, it's getting very technical again, but wheat is rather low in the amino acid lysine. And in our average diet, we already eat quite a lot of wheat. So if you take out the animal proteins from our diet, 50% of the amino acids that we eat comes from wheat. So lysine is already low, and if we add more products low in lysine, then we will become a little bit deficient in that specific amino acid. And you see that in our study as well. So the recommendation is ensure that the protein sources that you eat come from varied sources. So again, to repeat myself, the total protein content is more important than the individual sources. However, make sure you don't only eat cereals or wheat, because then you get the issue with lysine. But
Yeah, I think this is a great point that it happened already in other podcasts that we talk about it, that sometimes people focus too much on one single food, while instead, yeah, we have a bunch of food every day. We eat we hope so, a balanced diet, varied with a lot of foods. So it's not so important to focus only on one product, but obviously if we can make it very good, probably based on soy, on other type of protein, plant protein would be better in general.
Yeah.
And exactly. So, and in terms of the literature, so this study is something found something similar to other study. How we can correlate with other literature?
Yeah, that's also a good point because, as I said, this is quite a theoretical study. Yeah, so we modeled the results, but actually there are quite a lot of trials, so intervention studies who came to more or less the same conclusion. So a very recent randomized controlled trial that was published recently, did a intervention where they fed older adults with a vegan or an omnivorous diet for 10 days. So first 10 days vegan, then 10 days omnivorous, or the other way around. And the diets were really identical in calories and nutrients, but also in protein, but not the protein source. So they explored the differences in the protein quality, basically.
Yeah.
And after the 10 days, they assessed muscle protein synthesis rate. And they found that these were similar in after both diets. So basically, if everything is the same, so calories, protein, nutrient composition, muscle protein synthesis rates are the same. And for some, this result came as a small surprise for some people because there are other short-term studies looking into single foods or single meals, and they show that consuming meat stimulates muscle protein synthesis more.
Yeah.
But when you then start looking at carefully comparing the results, it's again about the amount of protein you eat. So in that first study I mentioned, the amount of protein was really balanced, whereas in the other short-term studies, for example, the amount of meat was standardized. So there may be less protein in the plant-based source. So, but if the amount of protein is standardized, then there is no impact on muscle protein synthesis. And I think, that's exactly what we find in this study. So it's good to see that it's very consistent across studies.
Yeah, and I hope we will have much more study looking into this rather than just looking short term with just specific food changes, and that's great for sure.
Yeah.
And given that you did on the Dutch country, do you think, for example, your methodology can be used for other countries?
Yeah, so we looked at the Dutch population indeed, and in this we calculated also the amount of animal protein that still came from that diet, because we only swapped the animal meat, so there's still some dairy, eggs, and fish, for example, in the diet. So at the end, after the swaps, the protein intake from animal sources was 36%. So still some, quite a significant amount. But the diet that we tested was representative for Western Europe, so countries such as Germany or the UK or Nordic countries, they all have this type of diet. Yep. So we think this is quite representative for countries like this, but countries with very different dietary patterns, such as in Asia, I think, this study should definitely be repeated, because it's all about meal compositions. Yeah, but maybe one thing that I wanted to mention here as well is that, like, you see also the over the past few years, expert groups and health authorities proposing to target towards diet that consists of 40% of animal protein, so reduce animal protein, but and target 40%, and our results really come close to that. So that's that amount. So 36% of animal proteins in our diets actually represents the target that maybe we as we are aiming for globally.
Yeah.
And in this modeling study, we see that's basically there's no issue on protein quality. So that's really, I think that's good news.
That is. We have a good news for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for explaining your study. I think it's very insightful, and we need more of this. Also to show that the population that there are not such a downsides moving towards a more plant-based diet, but indeed we have a lot of beneficial, especially for the planet and for our health as well, I would say. In terms of products, Will, you are the master here probably. So which protein sources are used in the products that you develop? How do you choose them? Do you think there is one specifically better than others? Just tell us a bit more on how do you decide what to use?
Yeah, so look, so for the majority of the products at the vegetarian butchers, we do use soy as our protein base. And there are many reasons for that. But if you look into soy specifically, people have been eating it for almost thousands of years. There's archaeological evidence that Neolithic peoples in China were eating soy. So it's not a surprise that we use a crop like this today, and it's successful. I think additionally with soy, it's from a kind of agricultural perspective, it's the most efficient crop per hectare for getting protein, for protein. So for example, you can get 1.3 tons of soy per hectare, whereas lentils, a comparable crop, you only get 400 kilograms. So there's some kind of efficiency there, which if you think, as I mentioned earlier, how important price is, anything we can get, any kind of benefits we could get downstream are a big advantage to us. So there's that element. The nitrogen fixing crop, which is really important because they pull nitrogen out of the air and bring it into the soil. So there's a reduction, a reduced need for extra fertilizers. Now, they're not entirely organic. There will be some fertilizers. I don't want to say they're perfect, but they do have some advantages. And then I think when you take all that and you move it down to the product side of things, they have a nice ability to be formed into what we call texturized vegetable proteins. And these are the kind of meat-like fibers that give our products that really meaty taste and texture. And they've got a unique ability to do that. So that is the base for our kind of our products. And so uniquely good at that. And I think besides all that, I think nutritionally, as Alan alluded to, it's a really, really high protein quality. I think we are constantly looking for other alternatives, but if you factor in all the other factors like cost, availability, nutrition, soy still is the winner. But we are constantly on the lookout for alternatives. But right now, soy ticks all the boxes, and it's the best all-rounder.
Yeah. Thanks for showing us different points regarding soy in general. I think there are a lot of myths around soy, unfortunately, and sometimes people are scared about soy. But as we said, it's a win-win for many different people and planet, and is also very sustainable. So I think it's good that we talk about it.
Exactly. I mean, it's reassuring to think that people have been eating this for nearly 10,000 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously doing something right. So I think when people say it's all this new food and maybe a bit scary, well, actually, it's not that new, really. We're just preparing it in a different way.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks, Will. I think it's also important that we cover another topic regarding plant-based meat alternatives. So protein are not the only nutrients that they deliver. I don't know, have you ever done other study in terms of other nutrients and the health role of plant-based meat alternatives?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So I think 3 weeks ago, we published another, our team published another paper in the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis. And there we compared the nutrient composition of plant-based meat with animal meat. And we did not only do that for like the usual nutrients, but we looked into 45 different nutrients. And this study showed that plant-based meat is nutrient rich. So next to high in protein, it is high in fiber, but also has a lot of key vitamins and minerals such as folate, B vitamins, calcium, magnesium, iron. So a long list of nutrients that it contains. And we also looked in the nutrient density. So we all know that animal meat is rather nutrient dense, but we found that the nutrient density of plant-based meat is equal. So that's really, and even without fortification, it's already high in nutrients. But we also saw that, it's really nice. But we also saw that nutrients such as vitamin B12, zinc, and iodine are lower in plant-based meat compared to animal meats.
Yep.
Yeah, and we noticed there is still room for improvement. So we've looked at a wide range of plant-based meats, and reducing sodium and reducing saturated fats, is really something that needs to continue. So overall, we think this study confirms that the plant-based meats are not only for vegans and vegetarians, but it's really a good source of essential nutrients for everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very promising, to be honest. And I think it's important that we always, also talk about fortification, which is a practice that needs to be more spread, I would say, especially on the plant-based alternatives type of products. Is very healthy. It's kind of easy, let's say, and we have a bunch of different already good example on how it works well. So it's great. And to all our listeners in general, I think it's important that we highlight the fact that when we eat food, we don't eat specifically one macronutrient per food, but we eat a very complex matrix of food, protein, fiber, fats, everything mixed, and there are the micronutrients, the macronutrients, phytocompound from the plants. So it's a very complicated thing, and that's why it's also complicated to develop and produce plant-based alternatives in general. Will, given that you work to the vegetarian butcher, can you tell us how important, for example, is nutrition for the brand when developing this type of products?
Yeah, so look, no one will buy our products or any product just because they're healthy. We are in the food business. And if they don't taste good, no one will buy them. We're not in business, full stop. However, we do need every competitive advantage against animal meat that we can get. And we see nutrition as a kind of key, let's say, weapon in our arsenal to compete with animal meat. So we need to be seen as healthy and tasty as possible. And with that in mind, so what we do is at the start of a development process. So when we, if we want to launch a new burger, hypothetically, I brief the team of food scientists and product developers, and we say, okay, right, we have to be at least as nutritious as animal meat. That's kind of the benchmark. And then where possible, we try and go even further. And I think some nice examples of that are on saturated fat, which generally can be quite high in animal meat type products, and in our products they're generally a bit lower. And also things like fiber, by its very nature, isn't in animal, isn't in animal meat, but it is in our products. So we do have some advantages there. But like I say, we do take that very seriously, and we do it at the very start of the process, so that when we get to the end, we know we've got something that is not only tastes good, but it also is nutritious. So that's the kind of the approach we take throughout that development process.
Yeah, I really like it. I hope also other brands start from this. And in terms of, for example, that we were talking about this a minute before, fortification and also salt reduction, which is another topic regarding plant-based meat alternatives. How do vegetarian butcher work on these two very important points, I would say?
Yeah. Look, I can talk very much from personal experience on both of those, but if I can take the first point on salt reduction. So look, I won't go into explain why it's important to reduce salt. I think everyone knows that, and it's in the literature. But also it's very easy to say, oh, let's just reduce salt. But as I alluded to again and again, the taste is so important. And if you look at any chef prepare any savory food, one of the first things they do is chuck a load of salt, chuck a load of salt onto it.
Right.
And it's a very it's a cheap ingredient, and it really helps lift taste very cheaply and easy. So any product developer or food scientist, their automatic reaction is, okay, let's get more salt in there. We have to challenge our teams to find a more sustainable and healthier alternatives. And we're quite smart in that we're using different spices and different flavors to mitigate that reduction in salt and still maintain a really a balanced flavor profile. And I can give an example of one of our key products I worked on a project where we reduced the salt by 42%. So took out that sodium and used other spices and flavors and landed that. And I think if you see, it's not just vegetarian butcher, it is a market trend. That now that the products have become a bit more sophisticated, people are more health conscious. There is a general reduction, and it's not just the easy go-to. Let's just chuck a load of salt in it and hope it's good. But it's not easy, and a lot of research and work has actually gone into that reduction. And then I think that the second point is on the fortification. Yeah, so the fortification, like I say, we do try and match animal meats as best we can, and we know that micronutrients are a very important part of that. So for example, Anne mentioned iron and zinc. Good news is soy itself has a natural source of iron and zinc, of those micronutrients, but it's not always high enough in the final product to have a meaningful level. So we will just top it up with a bit of fortification. So just add it. So it's we give about 15% of the recommended daily allowance of those particular micronutrients. So that's the iron and zinc. Again, very important. And then the other one is B12, vitamin B12, very important nutrient for any number of for our body's processes. And unfortunately, cows and sheep can themselves from just the plants. Unfortunately, we can't as humans. So we mitigate this and we fortify B12 directly into our products. So all our products will have vitamin B12 in there, fortified to an appropriate level. That's I think 15% of our recommended daily allowance. So yeah, a lot of work does go on to that, and it all comes back to that point of we don't want our consumers to miss out on any key nutrients, and that's starts with that benchmarking against animal meat.
Yeah, that's great. I think is a perfect way to benchmark with animal-based food, and I think it's really important that we communicate this to the consumer in general, because I guess a lot of people just look into the ingredients list and they see these chemicals, very strange word, but at the end of the day, it's just maybe, as you said, iron, vitamin B12, and it's important that people start understanding that not everything that has a chemical word is bad for our health.
Yeah, there's a really nice example of that actually. If you look at, I think I saw it on LinkedIn or something, of a banana, and it gave all the chemical descriptions of everything that's in a banana, and it looks terrifying. And I think that's a similar example that we experience here, where some of these things sound very frightening, but actually are quite standard substances that we as humans have been eating for a long time.
Exactly. That's very interesting from my point of view. And you said that you work really closely with science, obviously. So how do you use studies like the one that Anne suggests before, and she explained it really well? How do you use those studies into the product development that you do?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's has really changed in the last couple of years how we develop the product is that close collaboration with nutrition scientists like Anna and her team. And they are constantly uncovering really interesting insights and discoveries that help us make better choices when developing the products. I think I alluded to it earlier, but zinc was something that came directly from the work that Anna and her team were doing. We saw, I wasn't an expert on zinc at all, but we saw how important it was. And then we said, okay, let's start moving all our products, make sure that we communicate the fact that the zinc is there and it's at an appropriate level, and we add it to all the products. So that's a direct kind of translation of all that research into real life products. So that's and there are any number of examples like that I can bring up. I think another example is I'm hearing more and more from the academic world, the importance of fiber is not something that's necessarily in the kind of forefront of most people's minds, but it's something that we're now looking into in terms of either boosting those levels or maintaining about those levels, or in some cases communicating what we already have. Because often, by the very nature of the fact we use plant-based ingredients, they often have health benefits that we're not aware of or aren't shouting about. And then when some nice research comes out, it's like, oh, great, we already have that in there. we can now shout about it, and it helps us communicate with consumers. So there's also helps us realize how good our products actually are. And we can't do that without the kind of hours of detailed research that very smart people like Anna do.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like sometimes consumer really don't know what's behind, and communication is really, really important. So I think that's, again, a win-win for scientists, food producers, and consumers as well. But yeah, in terms of demand, for example, from your perspective, maybe I'm pretty sure you have more insights about this. What do supermarkets and restaurants want at the moment? I mean, are they also interested in all these parts that we talk about it? So nutrition, quality of the products, or they still want to sell the most tasty product?
Yeah, well, it's a very good point. So look, I think you have to remember, and I have been in meetings with kind of buyers from the supermarket and met them, and they are under pressure. They have to sell, they've got turnover rates, they have to sell certain amounts of things, and if products just sit on the shelves not getting sold, they'll be delisted. However, they are seeing, and I'm speaking predominantly in Europe now, and I suspect it'll be coming the rest of the world. We are seeing a massive shift that supermarkets are playing in shifting consumers towards healthier or more nutritious choices. Not just in the plant-based section, but plant-based does become part of it. Example, Tesco, which is the largest supermarket in the UK, they have stopped kind of multi-buy promotions on high-fat, sugar, salt products. They've stopped that. So. And they are also putting a lot of pressure on us, the producers of these types of products, to comply with them. And they say, look, if you don't comply with these, if you don't start complying with these healthier, more nutritious products, we simply won't buy with you. We won't be buying your product. So it's in our interest as well to support the customers. Another nice example is, I think in Europe, Jumbo is a big supermarket here in the Netherlands, and they've stopped a lot of multi-buy promotions on animal meat because they're aware of the environmental and health implications. So you do see a shift, but I think a lot of it is about educating our consumers, and we often work together with customers to try and promote the benefits of these types of products and a healthier more generally. But that's something we do work on together, and it's actually, we will share research with them, the likes of the research that Anna does, and we bring that to light. We make them aware of it because they're very important stakeholders in all of this. And it actually becomes quite a nice ecosystem driving consumer change. And then outside of kind of supermarkets, we also, one of our biggest customers are fast food chains, which are notoriously, notoriously not the healthiest dietary sources, but even they are getting forced from regulators to be firstly more transparent, more open about their nutrition or any research they do. And it's nice because we again are collaborating closely with them, sharing the work that we're doing, sharing the benefits of the plant-based meat which we're developing and selling to them, and helping them sell it. So it's about educating consumers, but not just doing that from an academic side or a food manufacturer side. It's also the kind of customer side. So it is it's a collaborative effort. But we are seeing changes quite in the last couple of years, and that's quite nice.
Yeah, I also see myself that people are becoming very picky on what they eat and want to know where the food come from. And then the whole war against ultra processed food came, and I think the food industry needs kind of like a new way of communicating and also produce food, and as well food chains need to to balance this as well. So
yeah, and it's not just one party, as I alluded to. I think everyone involved in the whole food ecosystem, for almost from the kind of farmers all the way to kind of restaurant owners and chefs. Everyone in that full kind of value chain needs to be aware and change and work together on and not kind of sit in their camp, so to speak, if we are really going to impact meaningful change.
Yeah, I agree. And also just came to my mind that also policymakers and governments can also help in this, let's say, transition towards a more healthy diet in general. And they play a huge role. Sometimes probably they don't see this, but it's really important, and also can help the industry as well, I would say. Yeah, so I think we talked about a lot of things in this episode. It was very interesting. We covered a lot of different topics, from protein quality to the salt in plant-based alternatives. So I'm really happy about it. And for example, do you have any new study that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, there's always a lot going on. One thing that I think would like to talk about is the TKI Explain study. So that is a huge clinical trial that's recently that just finished the data collection. So in that trial, they gave 100 people for 8 weeks in a row either a plant-based meat diet or an animal meat diet. So all the participants got all their foods. So we really consider this to be a landmark study. So really eager to hear the results from that study. So, but yeah, right now the data collection has finished. Nice. And probably we have to wait until the end of the year before the first insights from that appear. But I'm really curious for that study. It will probably be impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited too at this point. as you sold it, it sounds really great.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
And Will, can you give us a little spoiler of what you're working on at the moment at the Vegetarian Butcher?
Lots of exciting stuff happening, many of which unfortunately is confidential at the moment, but I can talk about an exciting new product that we'll be launching soon. It's a beef style product that's got made entirely from European soy, and it's got an amazing new flavor technology in there that really gives it a nice meaty beefy flavor, and that'll be coming soon. And our marketing team's given it an excellent name, Let It Beef. So we'll get very creative there. So yeah, watch out for that one.
That's great. Right. So a lot of exciting things from here till the end of the year. Yeah, thanks a lot, both of you. It was a pleasure, and it was really nice to meet you and to have you here at the ProVeg Talks. Before I let you go to your afternoon of work, so I usually ask to, like in each episode, what is your favorite plant-based dish?
I go first. Yeah. I received a nice recipe last year with Christmas, which is beef Wellington, but then made with lentils and vegan mince and spinach, which is really easy to make, which is important to me, but it also tastes great. So I really tested it a lot with meat lovers, and yeah, great success. Yeah.
Well, for me, my wife is Turkish and my mother-in-law is the most amazing cook. And despite common misconceptions about Turkish food, it's not just kebabs and baklava, and she makes the most delicious artichokes you can ever imagine. She cooks them with kind of in orange juice and all kinds of amazing spices, and they're absolutely delicious. So that would be mine. Mother-in-law's artichokes.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I love Turkish food as well because I live in Berlin and we have a huge community here. That's great. Okay. So thank you so much again. Maybe can you share also where our listener can check your research, for example, or your next insights? Yeah.
Via LinkedIn, I think that's the best way. Just type in my name, Anne Wanders, and then you will also automatically get all the new updates from the science. Yeah.
Great. And Will as well on LinkedIn? Do you use it?
Yeah, you can get me on LinkedIn. Me and Anne work quite closely, so we share each other's research. So, but yeah, or if you can check the Vegetarian Butcher website, there's quite a lot on there as well.
Very nice. Okay, thank you again. It was very nice to meet you and to talk about all this interesting topic. And yeah, to all our listeners, thanks again for tuning in with us today in this new episode of ProVeg Talks. If you enjoy it, please subscribe and leave us a review if you want, or if you have any question, you can always write to us and we can see if maybe we will do an episode about a specific topic that you suggest. And yeah, until then, until the next episode, stay curious, kind, and plant-powered. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.